In this video, I want to give you some encouragement. A lot of students get discouraged when they don't paint something exactly the way they want it. They run into an obstacle and have to figure out a way to get around it. This is the exciting part. This is where you get to become creative, and this is where you get to change your perspective. Instead of viewing the problem as an obstacle, you can view it as an opportunity to grow. This means the mindset of an artist is all about perspective. In fact, the mind can really be an artist's most valuable tool or toughest battleground. Now, just to clarify, every artist has different mindsets and perspectives, but I'm going to share some perspectives on creating that I hope will encourage you and other artists. Let's take a look at some of these opportunities. Hello, my name is Shalom, and I love to create and teach. Welcome to my art lessons. A lot of discouragement and fear stems from not understanding why we create art. People have a myriad of reasons. They create because it simply comes natural, for fun, for therapy, to explore ideas, to say things they can't any other way, to share something with other people, etc. A helpful question is, what drives you to create? Only you can answer that question for yourself. When you have the answer, you will know whether you are creating for you, others, or both. This purpose becomes the foundation for your perspective. Once you have defined why you create or want to create art, you can find out how much other people's opinions matter to you. To paraphrase Daniel G. Amen, MD and author, by the time you're 60, you will realize no one has actually been worrying about your opinion at all. We humans, myself included, spend a lot of time worrying about what other people will think about ourselves, until eventually we realize that worrying is often not worth the stress. Of course, there is a healthy balance with considering others' opinions. I'm not suggesting for us to have an excessive self-regard tendency or to overestimate our abilities. We need people to tell us constructive truth, and we need to compare in a healthy way in order to grow. However, I am advocating that we accept opinions based on why we are creating and why people are sharing their opinion. Instead of focusing our perspective on the fear, we can step outside ourselves and examine why it exists. When we understand our motive and are confident in our journey, not our perfection, we celebrate others instead of fearing them and their opinions. There is another fear that gives artists discouragement. A common thing artists are afraid of is failure. There's a lot of pressure to perform to a certain level, whether that's from ourselves, media, culture, or even loved ones. It can be a heavy burden. I've especially felt the desire not to let people down. What if we became friends with fear? Instead of running away from fear, we look it in the eye. What if we noticed it and asked it questions? Why is it there? What is it doing? Etc. Psychologists call this mindfulness. Often it happens naturally during the process of creating art. We step outside ourselves and simply observe. Then, fear becomes an opportunity to become creative and solve a problem. Professor, author, and shame researcher Dr. Brené Brown declared, "There is no innovation and creativity without failure, period." Failure is not always a bad thing, but releasing the fear of failure gives us freedom to experiment. Like the fear of others' opinions, the fear of failure can be turned into a chance to see the motives behind the fear, enabling growth. In addition to fears, discouraging self-talk can be a challenging obstacle. Sometimes we have experiences or words that hurt us deeply. The judge of an art competition tells us we won't succeed at an art career, or a loved one ridicules our feelings captured by clay. Even silence, the lack of encouragement, can be confusing because we may assume no one cares. Usually, these words and thoughts become so deep that they enter our unconscious mind and often become self-fulfilling prophecies, convincing the vulnerable parts of our spirit that we'll never be good enough or we'll never be successful. Then the negative thoughts become normal, familiar, even comfortable. However, these discouraging words or thoughts don't need to define you. It's possible to pick up a broom and sweep them out. Instead of focusing on the negative words or thoughts, I encourage you to try to find something positive you like about your piece of artwork. Maybe the colors, the composition, even a happy accident. One practice that helps me is to speak to myself as if I were a really close friend, feeding myself the truth in love and grace. Other helpful habits would be telling a trusted friend about the thoughts or creating a positive environment to replace negative memories with enjoyable ones. Henry Ford said, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you are right." Joni Eareckson Tada is an artist who thought she could and did. Even though she is a quadriplegic, she is still capable of drawing, and she does by using her mouth to hold colored pencils and brushes. Similarly, Monet had cataracts, but he painted what he saw anyway. Esser Farmagen was born blind, yet he paints colorful landscapes, using a Braille stylus to outline his paintings and applying oil paint with his fingers. Each of these people had capabilities and pursued them. You can too. Regardless of whatever thoughts are swimming inside you, remember that you can. You are capable of creating and your expression is valuable. You can examine the thoughts in your head and heart and replace them with truth and compassion if they don't belong there. Another obstacle to enjoying the process of creating is the belief that one doesn't have enough right brain coordination to make art. But I disagree. Let's define what we're creating with our right brain. In my opinion, art is merely an avenue to expression, like language or like music. Even babies express themselves. In fact, everyone who's alive can express themselves. That makes everyone an artist, right brain dominant or not. Okay, so if we're all artists, what about being skilled artists? My 2-year-old nephew's crayon doodle is quite a contrast from Michelangelo's ornate Sistine Chapel ceiling. Let's take my analogy of comparing art with a language. There are currently about 7.8 billion people in the world, and I think everyone individually expresses themselves in their own way. That means there's 7.8 billion different art languages or accents. Artists call this their style. It's their own way of seeing or their own language. However, languages take time to develop. Babies don't pop out of the womb and say, "Hello, Mom, my name is Fred." They go through a journey of learning to speak, then another journey of forming sentences, and another of articulately expressing their ideas until others understand what they are saying. And so it is with art and our right brain. My nephew is not currently skilled, but he is capable of using his right brain and becoming skilled. Therefore, regardless of whether you are right brain dominant or not, you are qualified to express yourself, and you have a right brain that you can exercise. Sometimes people wonder if they are talented or good enough. However, many psychologists agree that hard work beats talent, but only if talent doesn't work hard. That means even if you're not right brain dominant, talented, or experienced, you can grow in your skills. And if you are talented, you still need to learn and grow. One of my favorite artists, Mary White, listed 7 key ingredients she needs every day in her art studio, including faith, imagination, strength, perseverance, vision, courage, and inspiration. Talent isn't mentioned. Talent does not define your ability to create. Often, people equate talent with good or beautiful art. Beauty, however, is simply in one's perspective, depending on what is valuable to us. Some teachers, including myself, struggle with how to grade art. How do you evaluate someone's expression? Great art to some people is a blank canvas, while to others it is a photorealistic depiction of a human figure. Well, some teachers use a rubric that evaluates students in improvement, creativity, planning, etc. The common denominator between most rubrics or methods seems to be that each teacher has a set of expectations. In fact, artists usually have expectations too. How interesting that this takes us back to the fear of failing those expectations. Maybe the only expectations we need when creating art are the ones that align with our purpose for creating art, which, by the way, can change. Mediocre or great art depends on what our purpose is and what is important to us, both as the viewer and the creator. If you want to develop great art skills, define great skills and practice them. Whether we are born with talent for art or not, we all have the ability to develop skills. There's one other significant obstacle that artists face. Sometimes we are frustrated not because of the artwork itself, but because we lack the time to practice. Many of us have heard the phrase, "You make time for your priorities." Well, obviously, art is a priority to you, or you wouldn't even be checking out this video on art. If you feel the need to make more time for art, you know what to do. If you're really struggling to find the time due to kids, family, work, etc., don't beat yourself up about it. Family and work are obviously important. We all have our priorities for a reason, and we may go through seasons where we are busier than others. I think that making art should be enjoyable, not a chore. We all have the same amount of time in our days, and what you do with your 24 hours is up to you. Therefore, instead of focusing on how little time you have, focus on how much you have and use it accordingly. Now that we've established all these opportunities to grow, I would like to describe this journey. After all, growing is just that, a journey. Tao is an Eastern philosophy that means way or path. A journey you're in the process of making, no beginning and no end. The journey itself is the reward. We are all on a journey, and most journeys invite change to come along. Even though our definitions, purposes, and perspectives may change and go through their own journey, there's always a journey. By the way, journeys aren't usually easy, and like life, the journey of painting does not necessarily get easier despite experience. However, painting or creating is always an opportunity to learn and grow, which is exciting. We have an opportunity to jump in and enjoy the journey of expression. Remember, Joni Eareckson Tada is a quadriplegic, but she still draws. Monet had cataracts, but he painted what he saw anyway. Esser Farmagen was born blind, yet he paints vibrant landscapes. How did these artists overcome their challenges? They changed their perspective. They saw their challenges as opportunities. And so can you. Thanks for watching. Like this video and subscribe to my channel for more of my content. Also, check out my Patreon site and the link below for the coordinating worksheet and other exclusive content. Up next is episode 2, Eyes of an Artist.